You're listening to For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation.
Hello there.
All right, everyone, we are back to finish off Season 1 of the Clone Wars here on For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation. It is Don and Andrew here to talk about the Ryloth Arc of episodes, aka the episode we've been boosting up for like 2 months here on the pod, because every time we thought we were going to record it, shit ended up happening, but we are finally here to discuss these episodes, and I am so ready because these are really good episodes upon rewatch.
My body is ready.
I'm so ready. It is just, I'm so excited. So real quick, we just want to thank you for being here for the first almost a year of this podcast talking about Clone Wars. It's taken us a bit longer to get through the first season than we were expecting, but here we are. Technically, there's one more episode in Season 1, but because it takes place so much later in the timeline, chronologically, we'll be talking about that when we get to around, I think, Season 3 of the series, that being Hostage Crisis. So look forward to that, and we have a bunch of fun stuff planned. But I wanted to do something special to commemorate us getting through the first season and getting through, quote-unquote, Season 1 of our little podcast here. And this is something that we've talked about and joked about and just been like, this would be really cool to eventually get here. And I figured we're a year in. We've got ourselves a nice little audience at this point, keeps growing. And we thank you so much for everyone that has joined us on our Star Wars journey as we get closer to our goals. So let's celebrate a little bit. Let me just, if you're watching on video, it's getting a little hot in here. I wonder, it's just getting, it's getting a little hot in here. Oh,
what is that?
What is this? That is merchandise, everybody.
Merch. The merch.
The merch is here. We have merch. So this is a For the Republic t-shirt. Let me just get us on the site because our merch store has officially launched, and here is our first design. It's a bit different than the one I'm rocking because of good old DMCAs. However, you can get our logo on TeePublic. Just go to teepublic.com/user/for-the-republic-podcast, and you can get our logo, whether it be a sticker, whether it be a shirt, a phone case. We got a whole bunch of options for you here. I really like how it looks, and you can get the shirt in, like I said, so many different colors. Black is the default, but if you're like, hey, I want a bright pink For the Republic t-shirt, you can go ahead and get that. We have this design, which is our main design, and we also, because, as we know on this podcast, there's no Easter eggs in Andor. There's just none.
There's no Easter eggs.
So you can commemorate that by getting this design as well in a shirt or a sticker or a phone case or whatever it is that you want. Get it on a pillow. Get it on a pin, a button. Just be here to support your podcast bros here at For the Republic. I'm very excited about this.
We will appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, I got one of the stickers actually on this water bottle right here, and I have another one on my laptop. I'm just christening this as the Star Wars podcast water bottle because I had a Night Sisters pod sticker, and it looks like it's fallen off. So I'll have to look for that because I was going to shout out Mads, but that's unfortunate. I'll have to get that sticker reinforced on there. But again, head over to TeePublic to check out our merch store, and you can grab something to just support us. It'll help get us a little bit more to contribute to us, and it's just fun. And I've been looking forward to this for a while. So we got merch. And
We got merch.
we're officially launching the link, so head over to TeePublic and get yourself some For the Republic swag. It's going to be a fun time. Before we get into the episodes, just real quickly want to shout out Everything Everywhere All at Once for winning big at the Oscars last night. 7 out of 11 awards. That Kihei Kwan acceptance speech is just the most inspirational thing I may have seen, and it really just hammered in the point of don't give up on your dreams. And I have been there. I'm only 25. I'm not that old, but like I have since graduating, there have been points where I'm just like, man, should I just go in a different direction because it's crazy out there? But no, just don't. Just keep fighting. Don't give up on your dreams, because 2 years ago he literally was cut off from his health insurance, and now here he is.
Oh my God.
An Academy Award winning actor. And that moment of him hugging Harrison Ford after they won Best Picture was just beautiful. It was so great. It was so great.
I've got to mention Michelle Yeoh as well, finally getting an Oscar. That woman
100%.
has been she has worked so hard in this industry. Like, I loved her quote saying, don't let anyone ever tell you you're past your prime. And I think it's just so fitting, really, like, because she has done so much in the industry. She's like one of the most badass women in action cinema, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, to name a few. And she's just incredible in that film. I'm so happy for the whole production, because that film is it was my favorite film of last year, and I just thought it was a masterpiece. And how it blended action, comedy, and these fantastic themes of it's like one of the best responses to the theme of nihilism that I've ever seen. And I just loved its ultimate rebuttal to that, and just the fact that it went from this just absolute absurdity and silliness and just bonkers imagery to have this really cathartic finale that genuinely hit me in a really emotional place. Yeah, so I'm so happy to see it. Yeah,
an absolute icon. She's someone that I get excited when I see her in literally anything.
Yeah,
and I'm just so happy for her. First
have
Asian
her
actress
play Sabine's mum in The Mandalorian.
Oh my God, yes,
please.
She would be perfect as Ursa.
Yes,
but
Ursa Wren.
First Asian actress, I believe, to ever win an Academy Award for acting.
Yeah.
So that's incredible, well deserved, and I believe they swept all the acting categories that they were nominated for, because they won actress,
Best
supporting actor,
actress
and supporting actress. So
I think the only acting one was best actor that went to Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, they didn't have anything,
a huge comeback.
Yeah, they didn't have anything nominated in that one, so they almost pulled off a full sweep there. There was a couple technicals that they didn't win, but all the major awards they were nominated for, they won, and it was a tremendous film, and it totally deserves it. And I tweeted last night, just real quick Oscar talk here, because I talked about my frustration with Rogue Squadron getting axed right after I watched Top Gun Maverick last week. Which, by the way, when I got excited for that winning sound and Wakanda Forever winning, I think it was costume design that they won, even though Angela Bassett should have won supporting actress. But we'll get into that another time. Although she wasn't even my vote. If I had a vote, she wouldn't have even been mine. But
would it have been Stephanie Hsu?
It would have been actually Carrie Condon for Banshees of Inisherin.
Wow.
I thought that was my favorite performance of the whole year. And
that's
Stephanie
incredible.
Hsu was incredible. So was Angela Bassett. That category was stacked. And I love Jamie Lee.
Yeah.
She's incredible. She wasn't even the best supporting actress in that movie, though. So it probably should have gone to Stephanie Hsu if it was going to go to anyone from that film. That being said, I posted on Twitter, because I loved Banshees of Inisherin. I was like, any other year this would have swept, but because this is the year that Everything Everywhere All at Once came out, it got shut out last night. Didn't win a single Oscar, and it's just crazy how things work and the timing.
I believe it's the biggest result for a single movie since Slumdog Millionaire in 2009.
Wow.
When because that movie just swept the Oscars. I remember how insane that was.
Didn't Return of the King? I know it got nominated for 11. Did it win every Oscar it got nominated for? I think it did.
I think it won most of them. I think it won Best Picture.
It did?
Which it thoroughly deserved, because that film is a masterpiece. I love it.
Because I know there was one that literally swept, and I think it was Return of the King, but I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head. Also, I tweeted that it won. Yeah, Return of the King won all 11 awards it was nominated for, tying it with Ben-Hur and Titanic as the movie with the most Oscar wins.
Incredible.
But I tweeted, I was like, and this is a movie I haven't seen yet, but I was like, I'd be willing to bet my house on Avatar: The Way of Water winning Best Visual Effects. And it won. So I was like, okay, I could have won big there, but there we go. Oscar talk out of the way. Congrats to everything that won there. And it's big. And I guess it's kind of related to Star Wars in a way, because this was the first award season, and I can't tell you how long where a Star Wars property was a major contender in a lot of award ceremonies with Andor. So there we go, bringing it all back full circle. And also, if you want to see our Star Wars awards for the year, check out our Best Star Wars Stories of 2022 episode, available on the podcast feed and the YouTube channel. It's one of my favorites we've ever done. The four of us had a bunch of fun lists, and we gave our awards for the best and most anticipated of the year, as voted on by you lovely viewers right there. But let's get into the Ryloth Arc, because these were another group of episodes that I had not seen since my initial watch, like my first, I'm going to dedicate an entire watch of the show back in 2015. Like, I watched it probably when these episodes first aired, when I was like 10 or 11, but like, this has been the first time I've seen it since my first watch through of the show. And I can't tell you how surprised I was with how good these episodes were. Like, I ate this arc up. And I am just very excited to finally talk about it. Unfortunately, to peel back the curtain a little bit, because it had been so long since we were originally supposed to record this episode, I only had gotten around to rewatching a couple of the episodes. So my notes might be, well, I got a lot of notes, but I might be a little rusty on memory. So we'll go from there. So let's start with Storm over Ryloth, which starts off the arc. It's directed by Brian Kalin O'Connell. It is written by George Christic. The moral is, it is a rough road that leads to the heights of greatness. You mentioned, I believe it was you, a couple episodes back, you mentioned how even the Ryloth arc that has, it's the most like similar in style to a lot of the later season arcs, where we're going to take multi-episodes and we're just going to keep going here. But all the episodes still feel standalone in a way.
Yeah.
They tell their own stories. It's all about still the liberation of Ryloth and the Separatist occupation of the planet. But we have our first episode focusing mainly on Ahsoka. Our second episode is on Kenobi and Waxer and Boyle. And then our third episode is mainly on Mace Windu and Cham Syndulla. So I like the way that they did it, where it's still, it's got a combination of the more episodic season 1 style and the more fleshed out multi-episode arc style of like season 2, 3 going forward from there.
Yeah, it's definitely the most ambitious storyline that they had attempted in season 1. And, you know, we mentioned Hostage Crisis being like the final episode of season 1, but really it kind of felt it feels a little tacked on, because like, honestly, the Ryloth story really feels like the proper finale, because it's very big. There's a lot of stuff that goes down there. Like, you know, you've got this massive conflict that revolves around a planet, and it kind of functions like because of the nature of all these episodes, it functions kind of like a relay race, with each character literally handing the baton off to another, like by the end of each episode. And then it all comes full circle by the end of Liberty on Ryloth, when Anakin and Ahsoka pop back in at the end to help Mace out. I love the way that they managed that whole like transition between the characters. But yeah, it's like it's definitely a storyline that I didn't rate as, like, I haven't revisited as much, and I've definitely revisited it a bunch more now that we've had to delay it. I think I rewatched it. I think you rewatched it like 3 times, trying to delay when we were having it delayed, and I rewatched it twice, and I have a whole bunch of notes, thankfully. But I'm really impressed with this opening episode, especially with the kind of journey it gives Ahsoka, because obviously it for like younger fans now who are into like Clone Wars and Rebels and who are like huge fans of Ahsoka, it probably sounds weird to say this, but like back in 2009 when this aired, not many people were like, a lot of vocal people were like not that big on Ahsoka. People were very critical of her and were very, had spread a lot of like nasty opinions, like that are very reminiscent of like what we saw with characters like Rey and Rose Tico later on with sequels, sadly. But I feel like this episode does a lot to dispel a lot of the claims that Ahsoka was like a cutesy character who, didn't make much sense. And these whole opening scenes where they make you think it's going in one direction, where you see it looks like Ahsoka is going to be arrogant and make a massive mistake. And really what's going on here is that we're dealing with Ahsoka like having to move past an insecurity that comes with commanding soldiers. Yes. and having to deal with like a very real a very kind of like very real thing of having to make decisions that are going to cost lives and having to deal with that. I'm obviously getting ahead of like where we're going, but like it's a really interesting arc to give this character so early in her inception as well. Yeah,
I didn't realize I had my mic on mute there for a second, but I was going to point out how Ahsoka early on was very much an acquired taste. She wasn't the like beacon of female characters in Star Wars like a lot of people put her on that pedestal today. Like she was hated earlier on. Like I just remember the reaction to the movie in particular. We've talked about this before of how people were like, what is this? Like she's acting so like it doesn't fit Star Wars. She's acting like a spoiled like I remember like watching one video back in like literally 0809. It's like she's acting like, oh come on, Anakin, I want to go to the mall. And like that was the like response to her character at first. And now look at it now, we're literally everyone loves Ahsoka so much that now we're like some people in the fandom are like, all right, like there's other characters. But like getting to see early Ahsoka and see her evolution throughout this season of even this early, we see her growth in character development where like her in this episode and like the character she's become is a complete 180 from where we see her in the Clone Wars movie. She's matured. She's learning to lead troops, especially in this episode. Her dynamic with Anakin is changing throughout. And this was I would say by default, it was my least favorite of the 3 episodes, but it was still such a strong episode and such a great character study. I pointed that out when we get to the end of the arc of I articulated how I felt about each particular episode in the arc and how they all worked so well on their own while also being one full story. The first thing I want to point out with this episode, and it stuck out to me immediately, and while it was the last aired episode in season 1, I believe, and the chronologically last in season 1 before we get into Hostage Crisis, it was not the last produced or made episode, because we're back to that weird beta version of the Clone Wars fanfare for these episodes. And I was like, oh, we're past this. And then it kicks in. I was like, oh, we're back to this now, huh?
Hey?
I was like, oh, nostalgia for something that we moved past a couple episodes ago. But we're back to that. I'm like, oh, all right. But I didn't feel like these episodes had like, if you remember back to when we talked about the great droid arc earlier on in the season with R2, where we just pointed out how Downfall of a Droid in particular looks so much worse than every other episode in the season because it was the first one animated, I believe, or first or second, and like you could just tell how like blocky and unfinished it looked. And I didn't notice that in these episodes at all. Like I thought the animation was great. Like it did have some of the early like Clone Wars standard things, like the way that the clone troopers' faces are kind of look and shaped. But that's like all the early Clone Wars episodes where they had a different design than they did later on. So I'm all right with that. The Separatists have invaded Ryloth and they placed a blockade on the planet. We saw this actually earlier on in our, I believe, second episode, because Supply Lines was also on Ryloth, right? So
yes,
this was
Supply Lines is effectively the prequel to this, and the opening, is it Arrival? Is that the one with Yoda and the clones?
Ambush.
It's a prequel. Ambush,
Yeah,
yes.
so
It's a
Supply Lines
prequel
is a prequel to Ambush, and
because Cham appears in that as well. Like we actually get to see Cham being a little more disillusioned with the Republic's interest in Ryloth there. Like we see his frustration a little bit, and he's only kind of like an ancillary part of that episode because he quickly moves away, and then the episode stays focused on I'm a Gundai.
Yeah, I completely forgot Cham was in that episode because I was like, this is his first appearance production wise, but chronologically his first was back in Supply Lines. And I'm shocked that those were the only episodes of Clone Wars that he was in, were Supply Lines and Liberty on Ryloth. That's it. And
it shows how much of an impact it shows how much of an impact that the episodes sort of had amongst the fandom, but also like how fond the writers were of the story on Ryloth, and how it clearly was like a really important story in terms of like cementing the kinds of stories and kinds of arcs they wanted to kind of pursue here. Because I feel like this is definitely an episode that helps sort of coalesce Ahsoka as a character a little bit, because like we sort of saw like elements of her more recognizable personality in season 1, but we really get a feel for her character in this. We see her vulnerabilities. Like she's at the start, she's literally in a cockpit. She's talking to her droid R7, which also was a surprise to me, because this guy later on goes to appear in Series 7 of the Clone Wars and have a very pivotal role. So it's Nala Se all over again. Like they're dropping these characters in innocuously, and then all of a sudden they just wind up playing a huge role in the narrative. It's really cool. But yeah, she's in a cockpit, and she's like, it's her first command, and she's basically saying, "Oh, I'm not nervous. Why does everyone keep saying that?" But the way she kind of, but you can tell that this is a big deal for her. This is the first time that she's going to be directly responsible for the lives of like several clone troopers, and it's a very clever trick to also make sure that we know all the names of her squadron. I've got them down in my notes here. There's Axe, Slammer, Kickback, Swoop, and Tucker. They all like have that scene where they all check in, which is it's a nice callback to call forward to the All Wings reporting scene from A New Hope, where Red Squadron I haven't got the word, when they converge on the Death Star. That's the word. But it's a nice callback to that, but it also is a nice way of kind of like, it's just a clever way of like getting you to like connect with these clones a little bit more, so they don't just feel like cannon fodder because you hear their names. So suddenly they have more personality, and then when some of them die later on, it's more affecting. Like when Axe gets blown up, that feels like a gut punch, because and I just love the design of their helmets as well.
I had that pointed out. I said Blue Squadron's armor is awesome. I love the blue floral patterns on their helmets. It is a great design. And
Axe has a great battle cry as well when he goes, "Come on, you whiners, let's get dirty." I love it.
Love that.
It's brilliant.
I love that. I'm glad you wrote down the names of the whole squad, because I only wrote down Tucker and Axe because they, spoiler alert, die. And I was like, I gotta write that down. But yeah, you can definitely see how nervous Ahsoka is for her first mission. And I wanted to point out that who's ruling over Ryloth right now? Everyone's favorite Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones prequel trilogy villain, Wat Tambor. And I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't know if Wat Tambor qualifies as a Glup Shido. He's one of mine. It's like reverse Lot Dodd, where I can't stand that fucker, or Orn Free Ta, where every time he comes on, I'm like, ugh. Like when Lot Dodd shows up, I'm like, I want you to lose. But the design and the techno union, like, it's just, I love it. It's so George Lucas, and I'm just all here for it.
Yeah.
But the the Republic fleet they're on their mission, and of course they're lured into a trap because Separatist reinforcements they arrive. Ahsoka's thrown off. Yularen is really pressuring her to retreat, but Ahsoka is hesitant. She wants to keep going. She wants to complete the mission. Yularen has a great line to Anakin where she's like, "Did you train her not to follow orders?" And it's just that is such an Anakin thing right there.
Yeah, and it's also like a thing of like Ahsoka, it's a classic thing when people are when they are nervous and when they are anxious about measuring up, they overcompensate. A lot of people tend to overcompensate, and we're seeing this with Ahsoka. She wants to prove herself. She sees how daring Anakin is. Like, we have seen this as well in like throughout just season 1. We've seen all these daring stunts that Anakin pulls, and how in such a relatively short amount of time, Ahsoka has clearly come to like revere her master and look up to him as an aspirational figure. She wants to make him proud of her, like, and it's a very relatable thing. It's very relatable, basically, and it makes it a lot easier to kind of understand why she would push to complete the objective, even when it's like not feasible and they're clearly getting overrun. And it's a proper loss as well, because the ships are damaged. Ahsoka loses a bunch of her squadron, and Admiral Yularen even gets seriously injured, which is kind of a reference to Return of the Jedi as well, because a vulture droid pretty much smashes into the Venator cockpit, which is, I guess that kind of shows how like the workmanship, as much as the Imperial Star Destroyers are like awesome and iconic, I guess they don't make them quite the same as they used to, like when compared to the Venators, because that thing took some serious punishment.
I have that in my behind the scenes notes. It said the scene where the vulture droid crashes into the bridge of Anakin's flagship mirrors the scene in Return of the Jedi where an A-wing does the same thing to the Executor. So they really pulled that from Return of the Jedi, and there's a couple things in Innocence of Ryloth that they pulled straight from Revenge of the Sith that I will definitely talk about later. But cool. We lose Axe and Tucker, R.I.P. Ahsoka does eventually end up following orders and retreating. So you could say she's a good soldier, if you will. But like you say,
soldiers follow orders.
Not anymore. Not anymore. Yeah. He escaped it for now until they turn him into the assassin clone, and I cry. But
no.
The ships are heavily damaged. 2 are able to escape, but one of the Venators is destroyed. Like we said, Yularen's hurt. And it's such an interesting way to start this arc off in this episode, because we just see the Republic, they just straight up, they lose. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They lose this mission. But it's also,
and it's not Grievous who beats them either. It's not Grievous or Ventress. It's this new Neimoidian character, Martuk, who is like, he's an interesting character. Like how like he could have very easily felt a little generic, given that we've seen several Neimoidians and the designs have sort of tended to blend together in the prequels. But he actually kind of sticks out a little bit because he's a strategist, and it's interesting to kind of see him like take an interest in Anakin's like method of strategy, which kind of is like a theme with these episodes, how we see each of the Jedi's battle strategies are analyzed. We see it with Anakin, we see it with Obi-Wan, and we see it with Mace. There's like a scene where each of the villains for those episodes analyzes their tactics.
Even the very first episode we talked about, Cat and Mouse, they had that with Admiral Trench and Yularen, where that was the big theme of the two of them trying to out-strategize each other. So it's a very much a recurring theme in these early seasons. And it's an easy, like, yes, it is kind of retreading the same thing, but when you have a war series like this, it's a very easy thing to base an episode on, is insert a new villain, have them test the protagonist, boom, there you go. But I thought it was also a very strong way of starting off the finale, because it raises the stakes immediately. It shows the power of the blockade and just makes it like a even bigger of an obstacle for them to take down. And it reminded me, again, calling way back to early on in the season, it reminded me of how the Malevolence was introduced. Just straight up decimates a whole Republic fleet. And we see it right here again. Ahsoka's fleet is just completely just wrecked. She loses 2 men, and it just really gets to her emotionally. And I love that, because there was another episode in Malevolence with Anakin where we see at the end of that, I believe the second episode, we see the deaths of a lot of his men weighing heavily on him, but it was just that one scene. With this, it's like, let's do that with Ahsoka. Let's turn it into an entire episode where she loses her confidence and she has to get it back. And I thought it was a great plot device. Anakin is pretty disappointed in Ahsoka for disobeying the orders, but he's still there to comfort her. And this was the most, or I guess I know it's definitely happened a bunch of times in this season, but this was like the first time writing in my notes where I just noticed Ahsoka's theme playing.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
There's a great snippet of it during this conversation. Yeah. And I was like, Kevin Kiner, there you go. Or even this early on, they're making it a recognizable leitmotif. And I'm a big fan of that.
And it comes in at a really during a really brilliant line from Anakin where a sobering line as well when Ahsoka is like saying about her concerns and Anakin says to her, "Take heart, little one. That's the reality of command." Like the idea that she is going to lose soldiers. She probably will lose more during the war. We see that she does, in fact. And it's a really interesting story to kind of delve into because because this is a war at the end of the day, and it's probably like it's not the kind of story you would have expected given the kind of like I think assumptions people had about the show that it was going to be very like it's a little bit of a loaded term, but to say that it was like people had expectations that it was going to be rather kiddie and not really delve too much into the darker aspects of a war like this and like allude to the darker like future for a lot of these characters, but like it goes there even as early as like series 1 when they were still being a little trepidatious about how dark they go. This is still like a pretty mature thing to tackle for what is ostensibly a kids show. And it's a really nice moment between Anakin and Ahsoka. He gets to act. He shows that we didn't really get to see it as much in the films because those films were about Anakin's fall to the dark side. But Anakin is a rather empathic soul. That's his thing. He cares a lot, and he is disappointed. He is disappointed in Ahsoka, but he can also sense why she failed, why she failed, and she says about how, oh no, I see that's the later conversation, but I was really impressed at like how they handled that, and
definitely,
and as you said, the stakes are like really raised here as well because they lose a ship, they don't have many fighters left, and it does kind of lead to a really cool strategy from Anakin, which I was really impressed with.
Yes, I can't wait until we get to that.
Yeah.
But because of the failure of the mission, they have lost some time. Time is running out. Anakin convenes with the council. Mace Windu gives them one rotation to break the blockade, or they have to postpone the invasion. So again, we got more stakes here. It's like you got to succeed in this next attempt, or the whole mission we got to scrap it. We got to move it back, and everyone in Ryloth is just going to have to struggle for a bit because we couldn't help them out. And that's just like we have to make sure this works.
And we see next episode as well. Like we see the stakes there. The stakes are reinforced next episode when we see what the Twi'leks are going through, like on the ground. Mm-hmm. So it's a real advantage of being able to focus on all these different aspects of the conflict. That's what makes this story, I think, really stand out amongst the more serialized storylines in the Clone Wars.
Definitely for sure. We have another really nice moment between Ahsoka, where she just kind of sits by Yularen as he's recovering in the infirmary. And I think why I liked this so much is because we hadn't had that much of the two of them sharing scenes in this season so far. And they eventually have a couple more nice moments in this episode. But a lot of Yularen's scenes had been shared with mainly Anakin. So to have Ahsoka have those moments where she's just feels really guilty for putting him in this situation where he's hurt like this was just a great little moment. We have another discussion between Ahsoka and Anakin, but she's still like very affected by the loss of her squad. Poor Tucker and Axe. Just got to her, man. They got
Yeah.
with their cool helmets and armor and.
It's a moment of growth for Anakin as well, though. Like that
Exactly.
conversation, this following conversation that Ahsoka and Anakin have, it's a really important conversation because she doesn't just get over her insecurities and her guilt over the loss of her squadron. You know, she challenges Anakin when he's talking about this plan. He's like, "Oh, just trust me," and she's like, "No, that's what you said last time," and then everything, you know, and then basically everything went wrong. I lost people I was responsible for. And there's this kind of moment when she points out that Anakin's strategies often put other people at risk, and it's this kind of thing where we have seen Anakin do that. You know, but it's often tended to succeed because he's been confident in his own abilities. So it rhymes thematically with Cloak of Darkness, which paired Ahsoka with Luminara, because that episode was just as much of a humbling for Luminara as it was for Ahsoka, and that's repeated here because just as Ahsoka has to learn to believe in herself and has to deal with the idea of losing people because it's a war and that is sadly going to happen, Anakin also sort of gets a humbling as well because it's pointed out to him, oh yeah, your strategies, just because you're this like really competent, powerful Jedi Knight, you are still putting people at risk. Your strategies are incredibly risky, and that has created this situation where Ahsoka wants to live up to that, and it's creating this insecurity in her. So, you know, it's kind of it's a nice moment of growth for Anakin because he has to realize that because he cares for Ahsoka and he wants Ahsoka to succeed, and he realizes that in order to do that, he has to kind of adjust his strategy somewhat, which he does in rather clever fashion.
Yes. And we can get to that strategy because Anakin is like...
I almost didn't mention Yularen as well, because you were saying about Yularen and how like it's a really nice scene where Ahsoka like talks to Yularen while he's recovering. I felt so sad during that scene, knowing that Yularen is going to go on and loyally serve the Empire. You know, like it's so gut wrenching because it's like, you know, you see Ahsoka just like worrying about him here, and all I can think is, Ahsoka, this guy's gonna wind up serving the very Empire that's gonna like hunt you and your fellow Jedi down. Like it's heartbreaking to know that he not only just carries on serving the Empire, but he does so like enthusiastically, as we see in Andor. It's just, you know, it's amazing to see how Star Wars just like connects like that, like how a seemingly minor cameo in Andor like just does really just like resonates into these kind of stories. It's
still
really cool.
Kills me that they made him that, which I think we expected, but I was like, oh, please have him be like secretly supporting the rebellion. It's like, nope.
No fulcrum status for you.
Exactly. But let's get into Anakin's plan, because he orders the entire Venator to be evacuated, because his plan is he's going to pilot the defenders straight through the blockade. And I said it's kind of like a mix of the Holdo maneuver and the Hammerhead Corvette, just battering ramming that one Star Destroyer in Rogue One.
It's a very cool plan. Like both Ahsoka and Anakin's strategies are like pretty clever. I mean, it's pretty war crimey. Considering Anakin's like, I need to. Oh, I'm surrendering. I'm fine. Like, you know, it's very.
There's like, so many. I think someone put like
very Daemon Targaryen.
Someone put together a compilation of like all the war crimes the Republic commits in the Clone Wars, and it's like there's several fake surrenders in season. Like most famously, Kenobi in the Clone Wars movie.
Yeah,
might we have some?
You are stalling.
But this one as well.
There are numerous details to be discussed.
I go back to that scene all the time ever since we did these episodes of that. That's just one of my new favorite Obi-Wan scenes. But we see Ahsoka take control of the clones, but because of everything, you can just tell that they just don't view her the same way they viewed Anakin as a leader. There's just something about like just her strength as a leader. They seem a little hesitant, and especially because Ahsoka still at this point has lost her confidence. She hasn't gotten it back yet. So they're just very, you can tell the vibes are off a little bit. It's not the same as Master Skywalker or General Skywalker. It's a bit different there, and they got a adjust
they
to
can
that.
sense her insecurity as well. You know, I
Exactly.
should point out I am still currently reading Convergence of the High Republic books, and the main Jedi in that,
I haven't
Galen
even gotten there
Natai,
yet.
is she is going through a very, not to spoil, but she is going through a very similar crisis of insecurity as Ahsoka, which was just, it was very cool to me, like watching the episode, considering I was reading that book at the time. But yeah, the clones very much pick up on her insecurity and you know, it's the kind of thing where they don't want to be dicks about it, but they also aren't wholly confident in her ability given what's happened and given that she's so young and is yet to sort of prove herself. So like, to the point where even Rex is like, oh, I wish General Skywalker had consulted us about it.
Yeah.
And so it makes it even more like cathartic when Ahsoka like not only comes out with her strategy, but also like just puts her foot down and say, no, this is the path we need to do. And she slips up a little bit because she's like, Master Skywalker needs me now. And then she's like, oh, I mean us.
Yeah.
And so you get that nice moment where Yularen comes in and says, no, the commander is right. And it's a hell of a strategy as well to like have the Venator swoop in and just like angle itself so that the bottom of it is taking all the brunt of the fire, you know, which I might add is lifted very deliberately from Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire trilogy, as noted by Dave Filoni himself. Yeah, he said that he loved that sequence and he loved the thought of being able to transpose it into light animation. So yeah, we got it, and it was used in a very effective way as well.
Yeah, I loved it. What I also loved was Anakin contacting is it Captain Took, where he just shows up on the big screen.
Like just before he shows up, like there's a bit with Martuk, like when he just yells "Commander," and the droid is just like right next to him. I just don't know why that. I just found that so funny. Like, you don't have to shout. But yeah, you're right. He just like shows up in the on the view screen, which is just gave me Phantom Menace vibes because it does that fades into Anakin's face, and Anakin just like he has this look on his face that is just so hilarious to me because he's like he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna surrender, and like there's that whole bit where there's this scam where they're like, oh no, there's nobody on board, and he's like, Skywalker, what are you doing? And then like Anakin has this like mischievous look on his face, like, if you only knew.
I don't know what I'm doing.
I guess I'll be going. Oh, you can still have my ship. It's just it's a fun moment.
Yeah, definitely. So like we said, Yularen and Ahsoka, they team up for this strategy. Because I'm blanking on the exact details of it. Do you happen to have that in your notes?
Yeah, so like Ahsoka's strategy is like so Anakin's strategy is to like ram the main command ship, Martuk's command ship, because like by taking him out, it means the droids are all disorganized, so they just wind up like following their programming and just like going, you know, like attack head on. And because the Ahsoka ship is angled, it allows them to catch all the cruisers in a pincer movement because all their ships can fly out and just blanket them with laser fire, which is just just a cool bit of strategy to see in so earlier stage in the Clone Wars, because we've seen pretty straightforward battles, so to see a kind of like naval warfare style fight, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, a lot of great strategies in this episode. If you're a big fan of like the military aspects of Star Wars, there's a lot of great stuff in this episode that you can talk about. So Anakin begins his mission. He escapes the Defender. And like you mentioned, there was a lot of great droid humor after the command ship is destroyed and the captain just leaves like, I think the captain left. Who's in charge?
I guess I'm in charge. Like they just don't know what to do, and that just like reminds me of that later joke when in Liberty and Ryloth, when the two droids are like patrolling and they find that one droid saying, "Oh, you know, he's one of those older models running off a central processor. Not us. We're independent thinkers." Roger. And they'll just go Roger.
It's one of the best lines.
Droid humor is not for everyone. Battle droid humor is not for everyone, but it very much works for me.
Oh, it's for me. That's for sure. I love it so much. But as Ahsoka's plan is going down, as Anakin at this point, as he's in his escape pod, and there's just one shot where he's just looking up at it, and you can just tell how proud he is of his apprentice here. And it was another great little moment there, as my notes are are freaking out here. I can't tell if I lost any. But they do end up breaking the blockade, which means that the mission was a success. Obi-Wan arrives with his fleet, and they begin his landing on the planet itself, so they can begin the ground invasion. I think there's a great line here. I think it was Obi-Wan. It was like, I won't even ask where the rest of Anakin's fleet is or why he's in an escape pod. And they said that's probably for the best.
Also, we see these light cruisers as well, which is like I don't know if we see many more of those during like the rest of the Clone Wars, which is kind of cool because they're like they're like smaller versions of the Venators, and it kind of reminds me of the light cruisers we see in Rebels and later the Mandalorian. Just thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't even cross my mind. So
yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up. But the strategy was a success. Ahsoka's confidence as a leader is regained. And like we said, Obi-Wan's ground invasion begins, and that leads directly into our next episode. I really enjoyed this first little episode here. I loved the story of her suffering the defeat and having to pick herself back up, regaining that confidence. It was a great character study. And like I mentioned, the space battles were really fun to watch. The strategies were interesting, and it was a great Anakin and Ahsoka bonding episode, strengthening the relationship as master and apprentice. And it was a great way to start the arc off. Is you have the newer character that we've been focusing a lot of this early season on, and then you transition into episodes focusing on, our legacy characters, Mace Windu and Obi-Wan. So I enjoyed it. The behind the scenes note I had here, we mentioned the A-Wing parallel from Return of the Jedi. Yeah. Another one I want to point out, because again, this is just very George Lucas. The scope on Tacton Twi'lek's goggles is a reference to The Last Starfighter. He was originally scripted to die in this episode, but it was considered interesting. He was considered an interesting enough character and was spared. I don't know if he shows up again in the show, but
yeah.
I guess he was. Maybe Dave was like, maybe we'll do something with this guy, and
watch him turn up in the Bad Batch now. Like
everyone else is.
It's going to be like an Operation Paperclip style thing where he just gets recruited by the Galactic Empire for like strategic value or something, for sure. But yeah, it's a good opportunity to segue directly into Innocence of Ryloth, because it's a very seamless transition as well, because it literally opens with those very light cruisers just like entering the atmosphere and immediately getting bombarded by cannon fire. Just like a cool little SWEF note, because we're gonna mention SWEF at the end. Those cannons make an appearance in a story I wrote. So yeah, just nice little bit of SWEF trivia there. Yes. But we also get introduced to two of my favorite clone troopers, Waxer and Boyle. My guys, love them. I love them. I kind of feel like they're underrated among clones, weirdly, to be honest. Like, because there's so many other clones that tend to get like the attention, really. But these two guys, they're all right. I like them.
I love them for this episode. Waxer specifically has a place in my heart because of the Umbara episode. But
the pain.
We'll get to those. But as you mentioned, let's talk about Innocence of Ryloth. It is directed by Justin Ridge, written by Henry Gilroy, and the moral is the costs of war can never truly be accounted for. Yeah. As we mentioned, they have started their invasion. Wat Tambor is using the captured Twi'lek civilians as a human shield for this Republic attack, which is just really fucked up. But it's not. It's very typical Separatists. Is like, well, we're gonna literally use these civilians as a luring ploy. But this leads to Obi-Wan pretty much saying, "Don't use detonators, don't use rockets. Just stick to blasters, stick to droid poppers. Let's keep the casualties to as much of a minimum as possible." We get introduced to Boyle using a certain derogatory term for Twi'leks here.
Yeah, tailheads.
Tailheads. I don't know why that got me so much, but he calls them that a couple times in this episode.
Yeah, like the best one is like later on, but yeah, like it sets up a really nice arc for Boyle as well, because Boyle is like,
bit me.
Little tailhead bit me. I don't know why that made me laugh so much. But yeah, he starts off being like very kind of like, oh, why can't they just get out of our way and let us do our thing? We don't want to have to think about like innocent civilians here. But like, it's a moment of growth for him because he learns that you kind of have to factor that in a war zone because it's not always just going to be barren wasteland. There's going to be innocent people here. I mean, that's what they're fighting for. These are the people they are literally fighting for. So it's a very important episode, because I think this is the first time I think we see the clones actually interact with the people they are ostensibly fighting to save. And I think that's what makes it so powerful, because like Dave Filoni talked in the behind the scenes featurette that he was very kind of like, he was very attached to the image of like this soldier, the image of a soldier like meeting meeting a child of like a war-torn region, which I think is like there's a real kind of like passion in the way they depict the story, and it goes to a darker place because we get to see what the little Twi'lek girl Numa has like been through, and like it's I'm getting ahead again, but like it's some emotional stuff. It's surprisingly emotional second chapter for me.
Yeah, no, I love how this episode is structured to where it starts off like super heavy, awesome Clone Wars battle, and then it segues into this deep character study, and then goes right back into the battle stuff. It was a great,
and you've got all these sweeping movements.
The episode was great. Exactly,
brilliant. Especially like there's like it's probably one of the more cinematic episodes I think of the three, because you got all these lovely sweeping camera movements, the way that shot moves through the valley that the droids are in, and then that shot of the clones and Obi-Wan like running through that forest, and the way the camera just pans up.
I pointed
just
out,
like settles on the planet, and Kevin Kinder's score kicks in, and you're like, whoa, that was cool.
Every piece of this ground assault in the forest, I just wrote yes. Because like the camera work, the score, everything. I also love, on a technical aspect, how they depict Ryloth with all these muted colors. It just really enhances the fact that this is an occupied war zone at this point. The civilization has been stripped away, and I really love that on the animation department of the way that they animated Ryloth and made it, as we see in the Bad Batch. It still is like the Empire is still there, but it feels more alive as a planet. Here, it's just the colors are just grays and browns, and it's very muted, which I love. And I love when they're able to just use color as a storytelling device. I love that in any piece of media. But what I loved about this,
had the sorry, yeah, no, it literally has had the life drained out of it. That's the only thing I was going to add. Yeah, exactly.
I just wanted to point out how like this episode in particular could work as a great war story. Like not even as like if you took Star Wars out of it, this could work perfect as a war film of two soldiers find a civilian child hiding out, and they try to save her. Like boom, that's an Oscar bait movie right there waiting to happen.
Yeah, it's like Saving Private Ryan, but with a kid. It's basically, we're kind of also seeing the kind of like, we saw it first with the Clone Wars film, but it's, we're also seeing here the kind of genesis of like that recurring idea that the Mandalorian's later going to perfect. You've got the like the tough soldier character, like whether it's Din or Obi-Wan or like the Bad Batch protecting this vulnerable child, Numa, Grogu, little Leia, or Omega. Yeah, so it's cool to kind of go back and see those kind of connections. I also have to mention the squad that Waxer and Boyle are part of under Commander Cody is called Ghost Company, which is it sounds so cool. And that's honestly, like
awesome.
Like they should just use that name for like whatever little squad Rex and Echo are like putting together of former clone troopers, because that just sounds badass. Oh, and there's also a clone in this called Wooly.
Yep.
Like, it's just one of my favorite like random clone names, Wooly. Like he's just talking to Cody, and Cody's like, "There is always a way, Wooly."
I'm like,
does he just like nip on his time in his like
I hope so
off duty time? Like, that's how he passes the time. Like he's got to de-stress, so he just like starts knitting some little bit like accoutrement.
His custom armor when he's no longer a shiny just has like whatever like sheep wool, like the
crochet
equivalent of that is kind of like Mayday's armor where it's got the bandages on it, but it's just like sheep wool. The Star
Someone
Wars
needs to
version of
do that.
Someone
That
needs
would
to
be
commission
awesome.
that, please, because I don't think he dies in this episode. So he's still out there somewhere. Another cool moment I loved from this little forest fight was Obi-Wan. The clone throws the droid popper, and Obi-Wan just uses the force to push it into the target. So cool. And a
Obi-Wan
great
has some
way.
so cool moments.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
such cool moments in this. Yeah.
Especially him using the force. This and then one moment later in the episode in particular. Boom. Awesome strategy. I loved it. But the clones, they split up, like we said. They enter what looks to be an abandoned village. And Cody finds the hostage space where all of the Twi'leks are being held. Which again, the early Clone Wars is like, do we call them Twi'leks? Do we call them Twi'leks? It literally depends on the character. It's like how Han Solo's name was pronounced in the original trilogy. Just pretend,
yeah. People just calling him Han. Like,
is it
in
Han?
the
Is
early,
it Han? Is it
and
Leia?
Leia
Is
as
it
well.
Leia?
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
George was like, I don't fucking care. You can call it whatever you want. Like it.
Just faster and more intense.
Exactly. But as Waxer and Boyle are searching the village, we get introduced to the character that stole my heart immediately. We get introduced to Numa, the little Twi'lek girl. She's hiding from the droids. She's very scared because she probably assumes that these are droids because they got their helmets on, they got everything. She bites Boyle's finger, which I love it. I laughed so hard. Like, the little tailhead bit me.
It's so funny.
Something I did point, because when they take their helmets off and they try to talk to her, which we get the first interact where they're just trying to talk to her, and she's like, Nara? It's like, no, I'm Waxer, and this is Boyle. Like, I literally just watched the episode again last night. Gotta point out, I love these guys. Your facial hair choices, my dudes, like, they're just horrible. Like, Boyle's got like full on like Fu Manchu like mustache. Waxer's got like the most like early 2000s like goatee. It's just like it's the soul patch is what I think it is, not the goatee. And I'm just like, dude, you look like the lead singer of a fucking new metal band right now. Like, you just need to.
Oh my god! I've never seen that Fu Man. I've never seen it like that before. Now I can't unsee it.
It's not good. It's not good. It's like I'm all for clone individualism, but this is just ugh.
Like, just have a goatee just to like finish that off, Boyle.
Exactly.
What are you doing, man?
What are you doing, man? Just don't do that. You look ridiculous. But Waxer goes immediately into dad mode with this child. Boyle's like kind of hesitant because he doesn't want, like, he wants to complete the mission, but Waxer's like, we can't just leave her to die. Like, and they eventually both warm up to her. Like, Waxer immediately just gets into it, and immediately I'm just like, this is the most adorable child I've ever seen. This is like prototypical Grogu, like the prototype version of Grogu before we got him.
Numa succeeded where Rota very much failed.
Exactly. Where's he been? They haven't even touched on him yet. I like how we were all like, all right, Book of Boba Fett, like, they're finally going to reintroduce us to Rudd of the Hutt, and then nope.
I was so confident that Bosk was going to show up in that. I wrote an article speculating, and I put in the article, oh, let's be honest. If there's one character that's going to show up in the Book of Boba Fett, it's Bosk. Doesn't appear. And the character I thought was the most unlikely to appear, Cad Bane, he's the only person who shows up on my list, I believe.
Yeah, it was kind of like that 4-week stretch where all of Twitter was like, all right, this is the week that Kira shows up. Or no. This is the week that she shows up. And I was on there too. And I'm like, episode 7, like the end of the episode, like post-credit scene. It's like, all right, post-credit stinger with Crimson Dawn, and it's Cobb Vanth. I'm like, well, I'm glad he's alive, but like,
we really all just gaslit ourselves into thinking that Kira was going to show.
It didn't happen, unfortunately, but it is what it is. Another thing I pointed out, and this might just be me, but the whole time throughout this episode, Numa was giving me very heavy Boo from Monsters Inc. vibes.
I hadn't thought of that.
I
That's
just
a
made
good
that comparison. I was getting that just in the way that, like, not only her mannerisms and the fact that she only says one word for the most part, but just her, like, appearing and disappearing at random points. I got very much a Sully and Boo vibe from Waxer
Yeah.
and
I mean, there's even the hug as well
Numa.
later on when
Yeah.
she leads them to her family home. It's so sad. Like, you know, like, because at that point, you don't even know if she has any family left, and you can
Yeah.
just see that. And he gives her like a Lula as well. It kind of looks like a Lula
Yeah.
that you see in Bad Batch, and it's a surprisingly affecting scene. Like when
Like
she
a
just breaks
purple
down and
Tuca
hugs
doll.
Waxer.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was great. I there was the next one I had was like my first watch. I got legit emotional during the scene where they're just looking at her destroyed home and they just see the casualties of war that these civilians are going through. And at this point, we're like, did she lose her parents? Because we don't know. Like, eventually, we find out the answer there, but it's like, is she the only one left? Like, like what's going on here? It was pretty emotional. We
and it's
then
critical to the clones. Sorry, it's critical to the clones' evolution and in the way we perceive them. Because again, you know, like prior to I think the show, the clones were probably seen as like, you know, very emotionless. Like they were almost kind of like biological droids in the way they would probably be perceived. And to see this, we see the clones' capacity for caring and for empathy. How they're able to see this girl, and even though they have like no experience dealing with like civilians, they instantly kind of form this bond with her. And it's a really critical episode for like showcasing the kind of stories that you know Dave and the rest of the Clone Wars crew were wanted to tell with the clones. So without this, we probably wouldn't have got stories like the Bad Batch, you know, where we can have clones as like regular characters and showcase them as like these constantly evolving people and who aren't just like one note names and stereotypes.
Exactly. And getting introduced to this new like duo where it's not like Rex or Cody was again really refreshing to see. We then cut to the Separatists. We see one of my favorite things, tactical droids. Yay! But we see them testing out.
I like tactical droids. I love how like weird they look. They look really weird because they have the like weirdly dumpy looking like chest, and they're very arrogant. Like I am a droid. I am always right.
I am always right. But we see them testing out these creatures. And I gotta say, pretty terrifying design. I don't remember
the
exact. That's what they're called.
They're like they look like giant fleas to me, which is just like so grim looking, like with the long legs and stuff. Yeah, but I mean, I hadn't long finished the remastered version of Metroid Prime when I was rewatching this, and like they totally felt like an enemy out of that, which is a compliment because they're very intimidating the way that they move and their size and everything. So yeah, like I totally agree with what you said.
Yeah, no, and I love the scene of them just like testing out like it trying to eat the droid to see if it's like no, they need organic meat.
Not my motivator.
Wow, thank God. Like it was just great. And there's another moment pretty soon of more great droid comedy as we'll get to. But we see these creatures, the Gutkers, storm the village. There's one scenes where they just straight up attack and eat one of the clones, and it was real freaky to watch. I was like kind of disturbed watching that. But we get again one of my favorite scenes in the whole episode, because at this point Waxer and Boyle are still off with Numa. But you have Obi-Wan being just Obi-Wan, and he uses the Force to like calm the beast down, pulls a Grogu / Ezra / Rey, and just lures them into like this alleyway.
Yeah.
And calms them down, and he's like, shoot the bridge or whatever he says, and then boom, traps him in there, jumps over like the tops of them, and then jumps over. It was a great way to trap them. And I shows
Obi-Wan. Yeah, I totally loved it as well. It's such a great showing for Obi-Wan. Like not only his strength in the Force, but also the fact that he is a consummate Jedi and that he cares more about defending life than taking it. You know, he could have just, you know, I mean, I'm going to throw some shade here. If it had been Cal Kestis,
they would have been gone. There would have been
yeah,
no
they'd have
droid.
been dead. They'd have been dead within seconds. It's a good thing Connor's not here for that remark. But I think Obi-Wan, he's a consummate Jedi. He cares about not taking the lives of these creatures. He knows that they have been starved, that they're being set upon, him and the clones, and so he does something. He manages to resolve the conflict with very little loss of life. I mean, aside from like that one poor unfortunate clone that got like chucked around by the Gutkers, which was very disturbing.
Yeah. R.I.P. man to that one clone. You're here with us in our hearts.
We remember you, man.
Exactly. You are. We'll never forget you. Never. But at this point, we see the clones, Waxer and Boyle, show back up, and it just immediately Obi-Wan bonding with the Numa got me. I was like, look at this guy. I love him. But as they're going through they use the tunnels to get to the villagers at this point. And we get again another great droid comment. I got the worst job in the entire army. Is he's just scrubbing the cell floor with like a sponge or something.
And Obi-Wan just like closes the door and he's like,
just close it. Doesn't he, like they take out all the other droids.
He should be happy. He didn't get blown up. That droid is ungrateful, man.
I laughed so hard. We're just gonna close it. I loved it. But they find the villagers, and again we get another, like as soon as they pop up, it's like immediately the Separatists start shooting at them. Like we go like straight once again into super fast-paced action, and the way that the camera is like this whole scene is shot. Wow. Like it just felt straight out of like a live action project at points. Just the way that how active the camera is.
And you feel the tension like when Obi-Wan and Waxer and Boyle are like hijacking that cannon to try to take out the rest of them. It feels very tense because like, just the way it's shot and like, the way that the fact that these things have to be like loaded and stuff, it just created a lot of tension. And then you get that like that moment when both Waxer and Boyle are like knocked down by the tactical droid's like AAT cannon, and Numa runs out to them, and you get this kind of like really cathartic moment of the oppressed villagers like bravely rushing forward, and they just rip the tactical droid.
I loved it,
and just rip it to shreds. It was just so cathartic.
I loved that, and I loved the way that they used their own, like the Separatists' own cannons to take them out.
Yeah.
Which we've seen that in Bad Batch season 2 a couple times. I think we saw that in the premiere, where they repurposed the one tank and used
the AAT.
But then Numa reuniting with her dad, it got me right here in the heart. Like it was such a pulling on the heartstrings moment. And then I think this is when I started to get a little emotional, because Numa just runs back and just hugs Kenobi and Boyle and Waxer to just like help them out before the tactical droid is destroyed. And then we get the one Revenge of the Sith parallel, which is the you lose General Kenobi from the tactical droid. I'm like, okay.
Well, swiftly followed by does not compute. Does not compute.
You think you're slick here, buddy. But another moment that was very Revenge of the Sith, but more painful, I think right after the moment where Obi-Wan is luring the beasts, he drops his saber and Cody hands it back to him.
That's such a
and
great
I'm like,
touch.
You fucking asshole, Dave. Like, you know what you're doing.
You know what you're doing to us, man. What are you doing?
Yeah. But I said, the Twi'leks pull a Ferrix and grab the tactical droid and out of the tank and rip him apart. Very much. All we needed was Brasso showing up with a brick and going crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also and it ends really strong as well, like with again them handing the baton off to Mace Windu. And you get that nice moment where like Numa bids farewell to Waxer and Boyle, and we learn what Nera means, that it means brother.
This is when I started crying on my first watch.
It's
I completely forgot about this scene, and it's such a great moment. It's like, it means brother, and I'm like,
yeah,
and the tears came, and I was like, this was the first Clone Wars episode in this rewatch where I just legit started crying because again, this was such a, it wasn't like Siege of Mandalore or The Lawless where I constantly revisit it. So like, I'm not going to be as emotional every time I watch it because it's just so ingrained. I had completely forgotten about this episode and this scene entirely. So getting that and just immediately getting attached to Waxer and Boyle as characters and how they're protecting this little girl, I was like, nope, got me right here, and I got a little emotional there. I thought this episode was wonderful. I didn't think I was gonna get as emotional as I was, but it sure happened. Kevin Kinder's score was incredible, and like I said, I hadn't seen it in years, so for it to like work as well as it did for me was just such a great surprise. And it was like the perfect middle chapter for this arc. Is you get the emotional highs in this one, and like I mentioned earlier, the way it was structured, where it was bookended by these two amazing action scenes, but in the middle you have these quiet character moments that really like tie the episode up nicely together as one complete story. And I just loved this episode, man. It was so great.
It has some of the best like quiet moments. This whole arc has some of the best like quiet moments of season 1 overall, I would say. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, it's probably on balance, my favorite episode of the whole arc. Because like I just love the emotional story, the emotional connection between Numa, Waxer, and Boyle, and it's just cool to see Obi-Wan do his thing. You know, there was that joke. There was that thing.
Always cool to see him do his thing
as well. I was really hoping he would smash the thing, but never mind.
I hate probe droids. That's another one, like tactical droids.
Creepy things.
Creepy fucking things.
Yeah.
But now we segue into our last episode of the arc, Liberty on Ryloth. Our final episode we're covering here on season 1 is directed by Rob Coleman, written by Henry Gilroy. Once again, the moral is compromise is a virtue to be cultivated, not a weakness to be despised. I don't know what that means, but we'll go from there. Now again, this is me. This is another part of our recurring season 1 bit of Andrew discovers he has OCD, because I said, now we're back to the regular Clone Wars fanfare after 2 episodes of the older one. Why does this keep bothering me so much? Because they did this again. I forgot what, I think it was the Pirates arc, where the first episode had the old one, and then the new one had like the classic Clone Wars one. And I was like, just keep, like, why are you changing it mid-arc? Like,
it definitely exposes what episodes were like produced first, really, given that the use of that theme. But again, this starts really strong. Like, you know, we literally have like these ATTEs being besieged by cannon fire again, and freaking Mace Windu pulls a shatter point, like just puts his hand to the glass and breaks it. I don't know if that was like deliberate, but it felt very like it definitely felt like shatter point.
Apparently, this was the first time that they showed it off in canon,
and it looks
Shatterpoint skills. It looks
so
cool. Just literally breaks the window of the tank with the Shatterpoint, and like, oh, what a great way to like start this episode off. It's like, oh yeah, Mace Windu, he's a bad motherfucker. We're gonna remind you about that right here, because Mace gets a lot of hate, but Mace, when he's badass, is. Like, if we had David on right now, he'd be like, I fucking hate this guy.
When I tell you that my younger brother loathed Mace Windu for years because he killed Jango Fett. That was such a running joke in like between my brother and I about like Mace Windu. But yeah, this is a really good showing for him. Like, he, you know, this is because he's usually in the disciplinarian role where he has to be the stern one who is like rolling his eyes at Anakin and also Obi-Wan's antics and being kind of the stickler for rule following. So we actually get to see him as a Jedi here and show that, despite his sternness and maybe his rigidness as a Jedi, he still follows like that desire to protect people. He's still very good at what he does. Like we if anything, aside from Anakin, he's probably the Jedi that is the most comfortable with war and war fighting because of his kind of personality. Like we see how immediately capable he is. He's not just protecting people, he throws himself into the fray. He gets on those like really fast walkers, which is so cool. Like the way they just bounce around like kangaroos and they just like run. Well, more like jackrabbits, I suppose, or like hares. They like the way they just like pelt towards the cannons, and Mace is right there with his clones.
Mace and Lightning Squadron on the walkers just charging was such a great scene. And I gotta mention the camera work in all these battles in this arc has just been truly exceptional. Like they really went all out to be like, okay, we're gonna make this finale awesome, and we're gonna do some of the coolest camera work we've done in the season so far. So boom. I don't know what tactical droids did at this point, but I just wrote, God, I fucking hate tactical droids. It's been like I said, it's been a minute since I watched the episode, but they must have done something that I couldn't stand. But I just want to say the way the episode starts by showcasing Mace as just the awesome, like total badass, reminded me so much of the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars with Mace Windu with the B2s. Like it was literally just like, okay, we got to give him our own like signature moment where like that is like when you think of that show, you think of Mace Windu surrounded by the super battle droids, and then boom, it's like
he gets a moment in this episode. He gets a hell of a moment later on. Yeah, for sure.
When we get to the bridge scene, I think that might be my favorite moment of the entire season. But yeah. Again, this is what I put. I said, I have no idea why, but if Wat Tambor counts as a Glup Shido, he's one of mine. I just don't know what it is. Like, I should hate, like, the list of characters that I've stated my just disdain for the season. Zero the Hutt, Lot Dodd. Like, Wat Tambor fits in that description, but for some reason, I'm like, I fucking love this guy. I don't know why.
He's so stupidly greedy. The guy is a greedy bastard. He's just like plundering the planet, and he should be retreating at this point. But like, it's almost like a running gag that he's like, "No, I will have every last treasure off this rock." And it's a great. I mean, obviously, yeah. It's a great like message for like what is again ostensibly a kid show of like how the Techno Union, just like the banking clan, all of them are driven by capitalism, and how they care more about ravaging planets and environments for the wealth they can make than the actual people there. But yeah, it's just really great seeing him. It's just really I agree with you about Wat Tambor. He's a weirdly fun villain, even though he's pretty committed to the Separatists to the point of like we see later on how far he's willing to go in terms of advancing the Separatist cause, which is season 7.
Speaking of treasure, there's, I think, my favorite Easter egg of the entire show so far later on in this episode, which we will get to. Yeah. But we see Mace Windu talking with Palpatine over hologram, and then the temperature in the room started heating up in a sec, because the hottest Star Wars character of all time shows up here. Fucking Sender Orn Frita. Just boom, immediately. Instant fan service is just ready to go. And I got pissed because, we're seeing all these, Twi'leks just fighting for their planet, saving their planet. And this motherfucker is just sitting comfortably on Coruscant, not helping his people. Again, George, not subtle at all. It's like, we have the entirety of this season show. We have the Twi'leks and Ryloth under siege, occupied, and then we're gonna have just like the fattest senator in the world, this gluttonous senator, just sitting comfortably.
Just showcases like the themes of like the harm that capitalism does to like politics, how it just overpowers like a system of democracy.
It's those bureaucrats that Palpatine was talking about. This and Phantom
Yeah.
Menace.
Because like this war is going on, and Mace is talking about allying himself with Cham Syndulla, and freaking all Fritar's coming in like, oh no, he's going to seize power. You know, like, oh, I know he schemes to usurp my position. Like,
I hate him.
God damn it, man! Your people are starving and dying. like, who cares about your position?
Yeah.
Like, your
It's
planet
like
is
they
literally
make this
being
about
torn apart.
their like political rivalry. But that name drop of Cham Syndulla, I literally started fist pumping, and that's literally like one of those hindsight bonuses with Clone Wars. Now that we've seen that, because at this point, oh wait, we're like, who the fuck is Cham Syndulla? Like literally the first time that name has ever been mentioned before, but now we're like, yes. And it's so crazy how this episode and supply lines all we had, but then because of it, it eventually like gave us Rebels with Hera, and then the Lords of the Sith book, which is one of the best early books of the new canon, where he was the main protagonist in that book. So they just really loved Sham, I guess, to make him such an integral part of the story. I'm just shocked that he wasn't in the show more. But I did write this down, and this was when shout out to Mo, friend of the show, who's been on a couple times, who was originally when we were planning this, she was going to be on as a guest, but scheduling conflicts, so it's upsetting. But I did write, and I truly do mean this. Cham is the OG Saw Gerrera, just in terms of the freedom fighters, in terms of being a bit more extreme than the Republic is maybe comfortable with, and getting in conflict with the Republic and Senator Towers. We saw that with Saw and the Rebellion. He's the OG Saw Gerrera.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
I will put him on that pedestal. And he's such a cool character.
He's so cool. He's really well written as well, because this is the first time we've seen kind of like a revolutionary type figure introduced into the show. And he has a right to be concerned, since we immediately see Orn Free Tar and how Orn Free Tar cares more about his position, his power being usurped, than like the plight of his people. And he has that great line when him and Mace are sitting together, and he says to Mace, like, how long before I am fighting you, Master Jedi? Which is just like, that's the first time we've had some foreshadowing of like what's going to happen to the Republic, how it is going to become the Empire. But it's also a really Mace is the perfect character for us to meet Cham Syndulla, because just like Cham, Mace doesn't care about the politics. Like he cares more about helping the people. And it's why it's a good showing for him, because there's a tendency to like associate Mace, I think, with like the downfall of the Jedi, and how like through his arrogance maybe and his rigidness following the Jedi code, he's blind to the rise of the dark side. But he also is compassionate. He also cares about protecting people, and he also is completely willing to overlook politics, because he understands that there is like there are greater things at play here than like protecting your station.
Exactly. I really loved it, and you could just tell that, like you said, Mace doesn't give a fuck about the politics. Palpatine and Todd are like, I don't trust this guy, but Mace is like, I need his help, so I'm gonna get his help.
Yeah,
and I just loved it. We have to get, of course, because it's Clone Wars. We have to. Dooku just has to stop by, get his quick cameo in.
Yeah.
So Wat Tambor is a quick scene talking to Count Dooku. It's like, this occupation better be a success, and it's like, we have to have him in. Just, you got to show it. We can't have an arc without Dooku. We have all these other villains.
We talked about stuff resonating, and again, that's very true, because now that Tales of the Jedi has come out, the scenes with Dooku are so tragic. Watching this back, like how he fell to the dark side because he was angry and upset at the corruption in the Senate, and how the Jedi blindly served a Senate of corrupt bureaucrats who didn't want to help the people they were supposed to represent. And now here he is basically making a like extremely dark political statement, how he's willing to bomb the capital city of Ryloth, and just to send a message. Oh, this is what happens when the Republic occupies a planet or takes back a planet from the Separatists. And it's so it's very, very sad. It's a show. It goes to show his like tragic descent as a character, and like it's a thing that resonates here. And like the only other note I wrote about that scene was Wat Tambor is a prick.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because like it's so comically greedy that he just has to have every single artifact that he can scrounge off the planet. But it's also very cool that it's like that's his downfall. His greed, his never-ending, his insatiable greed is his downfall.
Yeah, but we get that moment that we talked about earlier of, there's that droid. It's like that's the older model. Yeah, not like us. We're independent thinkers. Roger. It's so great. But we get a great introduction to the Freedom Fighters because they show up. They take out all the droids. They show up on blurgs. It's just for
blurgs.
Sick Mando reference.
Yeah, so like when I first like went back through this show like in 2020 to prepare for season 7, I got to this story and I was stunned because I had no idea that the blurgs I'd completely forgotten that the blurgs showed up in this story. I just remembered them from Mandalorian. So it's so nuts to think that
Weren't
like
they
even
originally from the holiday special?
I don't know. I see that I'm gonna have to like check that out, but it's just it's so cool that like even from the first episode of The Mandalorian, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau were giving us some Clone Wars callbacks with the blurg, and they're really cool here. Like I liked that little bit of verbal sparring between the Lightning Squad trooper and one of Cham's freedom fighters, who's voiced by James Arnold Taylor. I'll point out in a fun cameo.
Oh yeah, you can just tell when someone's voiced by James Arnold Taylor. He still has that same cadence. But Cham, love him, such a badass. And again, shout out Kevin Kiner, because for whatever reason I was just drawn to the score in the scene where Mace is brought to Cham's hideout. For whatever reason, that specific score just caught my attention. I was like, okay, he's going off with the score in this arc. But as we mentioned, Cham is very hesitant to help the Republic because, like you said, how long is it going to be until I end up fighting you? And, of course, he does not trust Senator Ta whatsoever. And that's like one of the reasons why he just says, I'm not going to help you, because he doesn't trust him. But because of their customs, he still allows them to stay at the hideout and gives him access to their resources. So it shows the customs of his people. But then because Wat Tambor is a prick, the Vulture droids just start to bomb the villages. Just nice casual civilian bombings. Super fun, super cool. We love war crimes. However, because of the clones showing up to inform Cham and Mace of the bombings, he just changes his mind. He's like, "No, I will help you. I need to defend my people."
Yeah, and it just shows his integrity.
He promises to speak to Orn Free Ta to kind of come to an understanding. And then at this point in the episode, we get, again, like I mentioned, my favorite Easter egg of season 1, because we see the droids loading all these Ryloth artifacts into Tambor's ship. And again, for video listeners, does that look familiar in the back there? I'll probably zoom in on that in the editing, but that's the freaking Ark of the Covenant in Star Wars.
So it's such a cool Easter egg. Yeah,
I love it. And I love how it's pretty much the exact same model, except they replace some of the symbols on there with, I believe, Twi'lek heads. So it's technically the Ryloth Arc is canon in Star Wars, and then this is also the Ryloth Arc, but spelled different. The story
we've got like, so there were 2 for 2 for like Indiana Jones references, because we had the Staff of Rahed appearing in the Pirate Story arc, and now we've got this. It's just really cool. There's a lot of Indiana Jones love going on in the Clone Wars,
and Dial of Destiny coming up later, so it's reminding me to get back to my marathon and finish that off, because I loved this. I loved this little tidbit, and it's not the first time, like you said, that there's been an Indiana Jones reference in Star Wars. There was a bunch in Andor, and it's been back and forth. There was the Club Obi-Wan in Temple of Doom, and I believe R2 and 3PO show up on a couple of the hieroglyphics in either Raiders or Temples. So
I'll be surprised if we don't get like at least one Star Wars reference in.
We'll get something.
Destiny.
We will get something for sure. I mean, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is playing Indy's daughter, so or his goddaughter.
The goddaughter, yeah.
Maybe there'll be a slick L3 reference somewhere in there. That would make me very happy.
Droid rights.
Love that so much. But Cham is just him and Orn Free Toss start talking, and he's just speaking facts here. Like he's talking to him like exactly how I would. And he's like, "Oh, you're just sitting comfortably there in Coruscant while I'm out here fighting the battle." I'm like, yes, go off.
Yeah,
just
like he roasts it when he says, "So glad you could join us from comfortable Coruscant." It's just such a great great diss. Perfectly, yeah. And also like I've got to point out like this is Robert Atkin Downes' Clone Wars debut, and he's a really awesome voice actor. I know him. I first knew him from like Gears of War when he voiced the Kim in the first few levels. His voice very much stuck out to me, and he's got a very commanding presence as Cham. It's so cool that they were able to like keep bringing him back like in Rebels as well.
Yeah, no, it was great that he showed up again here. But then we get to see some crossover with this arc or this episode and a couple of the older ones in the arc, because Anakin and Ahsoka start to show up and they start taking out the bombers in the air while Mace is taking care of the stuff on the ground. So I loved that. And then we get to my favorite scene in the whole episode, maybe the entire season, because Cham's forces and Mace's forces start working together. They're trying to get across this bridge, and the droids just take out the bridge. And again, everything. The way that, first of all, hats off to the sound design. The way the sound just goes out, just immediately. The voice acting, like T.C. Carson just acts his ass off in this scene. The animation's perfect. Just everything about this, just him just bouncing back and forth, saving his men, jumping off the why am I forgetting the
hollow bridge?
The hollow bridge, and the ship as it's dropping was just such a cool scene. And that was immediately what stuck out to me about this episode was the way that they did this and the way that they just showed off like, oh yeah, no, Mace is that freaking guy at points, because this was such a great scene. And I want to rewatch it again after we finish this episode, because it got me. But they're eventually
kicks ass. Oh no, yeah, I was just gonna say that it kicks ass. It's just a really impressive sequence, like you said, with the sound dropping out, and it's just so tense as well.
Yeah,
like such a great conception of a scene, like with the hollow bridge, and like the fact that it can just be turned off at any moment. It really adds to the tension, even though we as older fans who have like seen the prequels, we know Mace is going to be fine, but like there's also the tension of having his clones there. We spent time with the Lightning Squadron members, so we sort of kind of like we sort of like them as well. And there's also that scene where they fight the commando droids as well, which is also very tense.
Yeah, no, they just popped out of nowhere, and it like jump scared me when they showed up, because I was like, again, those things are creepy. So when they showed up, I was like, oh my God, like I was not expecting commando droids at this point. But once they get the bridge back up, what a cool visual of just the Lightning Squadron and Cham's fighters on the blurgs just charging together to take out these droid forces. What a cool visual. And I loved it. I also loved when the commando droid shows up, the clones just straight up fist fighting them. I was just like, okay, that's
that
awesome.
was badass. And they don't die as well. Like the fact that they were able to fist fight commando droids when we've seen commando droids just tear through regular clone troopers. It's really cool. Like, you know, yeah, it's a really cool showing for Lightning Squadron. I think we also get like a brief look at Mace's clone commander, Commander Pons, I believe. I could be wrong. But yeah, they've just got a really cool like color design with the purple.
Yeah. No, they recently put out a Lego set of that, which I have somewhere over there. I don't remember exactly where, but it's chilling over there somewhere on that shelf. And I just love the look of his clones. I love the purple going great with his saber. I just think it's a great color for clone armor. Wat Tambor being a sneaky little shit. Oh, sorry, no, not Wat Tambor. The tactical droid.
Yeah,
sneaky little shit, and he escapes off with Wat Tambor's ship, which I just thought was hilarious.
Brilliant. Yeah, and then Mace just like arrives, just like holds his lightsaber to Wat Tambor's neck, and he says, "Perhaps we can come to some kind of compromise."
Yeah, just so sniveling.
Yeah, and then he's like, "We will all perish in the name of the Separatist Alliance" when the bombers are coming.
Yeah,
and then
Anakin just comes in immediately, takes it out. I'm like, I wrote Deus Ex Machina. Yeah, is it still cool? Yeah.
That's the thing. Like that would feel like a Deus Ex Machina, except they have the prior scene of like Anakin and Ahsoka trying to get to the bombers.
Yeah,
but also again, like I said earlier, it's this nice kind of like relay thing where like Anakin passed the baton to Obi-Wan, then Obi-Wan to Mace, and then Mace back to Anakin in a sense because they both come in from the air. It's just a really nice cyclical kind of storytelling that we see here, and this arc is so good because you get to see so many different aspects of this conflict. With Storm over Ryloth, you got the naval conflict in the air, in space. In Innocence of Ryloth, we see how the people are being affected, and then in Liberty of Ryloth, we explore ideologies, we explore the political conflict that is going on, and how like politics in war, sometimes those kind of politics need to be put aside to focus on saving lives and keeping and preserving the culture, because we see how like Cham and his people, they treasure their culture, as we later get to see in Rebels as well. We get to see how like the Separatists don't care about the culture. They and later on the Empire just want to like commodify it and just like strip it of all of its perceived value so that they can make a profit off of it. Yeah,
it is. I wrote like it's a great moment seeing Ryloth get like finally be free at the end of this arc, but it's so bittersweet knowing that for pretty much the entirety of the Imperial era, they're occupied again because the Republic transitions into the Empire, and it's same old.
It even ends like just like the Phantom Menace, like with this parade. I have a question for you. So the camera focuses on that little Twi'lek girl like waving to everyone. Now it's the same model as Numa, I believe. But was I the only one who thought that might be Hera? Like, because we see the girl.
Thinking it. Was it the same color as Numa?
I'm not sure about the color. It's not Numa because the color is different, and it looked similar to Hera because I know that like. Because we see that same Twi'lek girl like run over to Cham, and he just sort of like picks her up almost like she's his own kid, and I was kind of like, well, this is kind of the age Hera would be, because she's still pretty young in Bad Batch, like she's just I think a few years older than Omega, because I think she's 14, 15 at the start of the Bad in season 1 of the Bad Batch. So yeah, it very well could be her, which would be a retrospective thing. But yeah,
they could retcon it into being Hera.
Yeah,
but
I just love the thought of that being Hera. It's just
Real quickly, I want to give a negative shout out to Orn Free showing up here at the very end during the parade, acting like he helped out. Go fuck yourself, buddy. You did nothing. I hate you. Go away. But yeah, no, this was another really strong episode in my mind. I thought it was a great story. Yeah, just go away. Mace, completely badass. Cham is another one of those great, like, Dark Horse favorite characters of mine that you don't think about him much, but when you do, be like, oh yeah, Cham Syndulla, like, he's freaking awesome. And
also, this kind of cemented that the Twi'leks all have French accents, which I love. Like, because I don't know if this. I think this was all Ritar's first appearance as well. So this was like the first time that we kind of explore that, which is so cool. And it also like meant that like for Rebels, we got to have that whole scene where like, you know, even though Hera has like an American accent,
has to hide her.
She transitions in and out. Yeah, I love that. So we'll talk about it when we eventually
get to Rebels. But the fact that Vanessa Marshall had played Hera with the French accent in Bad Batch was
such a nice touch. Yeah.
And I just pointed out how I loved how well-rounded this arc was. How, like we said, Storm was a great redemption story for Ahsoka. Innocence was an emotional character study, and Liberty being an epic war film in a way, in one 22-minute episode. And I thought it was a great way to end the season overall. I do have a couple behind-the-scenes notes for this episode that I can real quickly go up. So an earlier version of the story had Mace rescuing captive Twi'leks from a prison suspended over a volcano. However, early designs ended up looking too much like Mustafar, and the story was changed. So that was one. And then here's one that I'm very glad they changed, which was Cham Syndulla was originally allied with the Separatists, working for Wat Tambor and lying to the Twi'lek people. He was to escape with the Separatists on the shuttle. However, due to plot complications, Syndulla was changed to a quote-unquote freedom fighter. How different would Star Wars have been if this ended up being the case? Like, Rebels would be completely different. I'm glad they changed that. Because if they made Cham like just he's a villain, I would have been pissed off.
Me too, man. That's wild. I didn't even know that. That's such a cool fact.
So I saw that and I was like, thank God they changed that, because so much would be different. And we have reached the end of season 1. It is crazy. Real quickly, I just want to say my favorite episode. I'll say it's Innocence of Ryloth for this arc. What do you think here?
I don't know. Like, I have to go through the whole season, like just go through like refresh all the episodes in my mind. But I think Innocence of Ryloth is definitely up there for me. I think probably it might even take the top spot, because it's very emotional, and it explores. It's a very kind of like, it feels very grounded. Conflict to explore in Clone Wars, which is just, it's so admirable, and it's like it's a kind of a taste of the places they're going to go in season 2 and beyond.
So for me, you don't have to do this, but I also wrote down for my favorite episode and story arc of the season. So for my favorite episode, I had Rookies took the top spot for me. That is still just incredible. And I also have the Domino Squad arc as my favorite of the season, with the Ryloth arc. I actually have at number 2. I actually have I've been keeping track of ranking the episodes and arcs as we go, just in my head, and I'm eventually going to do a thing when we finish the series. But my top 5 of the season, just to be quirky, I have Dooku Captured as 5, Clone Cadets as 4, Trespass as 3, Lair of Grievous as 2, and Rookies at 1. So that is my top 5 episodes of the season for season 1. Overall, people give season 1 a little bit of a bad rap at points. I do think it's the least polished of the Clone Wars seasons, just because they were still trying to find their footing. Certain episodes aren't that good, both animation and story-wise at points. But there were a lot of gems in this season overall. There were only really 3 or 4 episodes that I just wasn't huge on. The droid episodes I didn't like. I didn't care for the Lerman episodes that much. But aside from that, I quite liked a lot of the episodes this season. Like Rookies, I think, is an all-time great Clone Wars episode. And then getting to revisit episodes like Lair of Grievous, like The Hidden Enemy, like these episodes that I had that had completely like been lost in time for me, and just hadn't been ones that I'd revisited. But then just going back and watching them again with fresh eyes just immediately made them some of my new favorite episodes of the show, because I just completely forgot about them. I have one more surprise for you, Don, before we wrap things up. I actually hold. If you want to give your thoughts on the season, and then I'll
So
go from there.
Yeah, so I would agree with you that it's season 1 is probably the least of the Clone Wars series, which is, if anything, is a compliment, because if your weakest season is your first and you just get better from there, that's a testament to like the kind of storytelling that they're going to go on to do. Like there were a few episodes that were like outright bad, like as you said, the droid arc. You know, it just didn't really come together, unfortunately. It felt very indicative of what people kind of expected the show to be, whereas like there were still plenty of episodes that when you actually go back and rewatch them, like the Malevolence arc, you know, the Newt Gunray trilogy, as we call, like those episodes are like actually really hold up, and some of them are even like some of them are like upper echelon levels of like Clone Wars episodes, I would say.
When we did the Gunray arc, I remember being worried going into it because Bombad Jedi, for a long time, people hated that episode because of Jar Jar, and I watched it. I was like, this arc is awesome. I loved
these
episodes.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
But
as for my top 5, I'll just quickly like throw out my top 5. So I'll probably say Ambush is like number 5 because I just really like it. It was such a strong debut for the show. I think 4th is probably I think 4th is probably Blue Shadow Virus because I just love
I do love Blue Shadow Virus.
Yeah, and that is a good one. I think third is Trespass. Oh no, hang on. Yeah, I think Ambush is probably gonna have to be an honorable mention. Actually, no. So I think actually Blue Shadow Virus is number 5. Lair of Grievous. Yeah, I'm doing this off the cuff. You can so tell.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I think it's probably
Lair of Grievous is the Nadar Veb episode.
Blue Shadow Virus, then Lair of Grievous, then Innocence of Ryloth, then Trespass, and then Rookies. I think is my overall top 5 because I really love Trespass. I loved how dark that story went. I wasn't there for like the episode recording, but it's a funny one, especially like one. I loved hearing about how Jared's take on Rio Chuchi. That's gonna be we gotta have you back, Jared. We gotta have you back on for the next time she makes an appearance. That's gonna be a fun debate, bud.
Especially after Bad Batch, because I was so excited when she showed up, and then Jared was like, "I hate Rio Chuchi." Me and Connor were like, "The fuck?" Like we were not expecting that. But I got one more surprise for you because while we've been watching these episodes, we have acknowledged the fact that this is a war story and we do lose characters as the show goes on. So I have compiled what I believe is every named character that has died in season 1, and I've created the For the Republic in memoriam. So rest in peace to our fallen soldiers here. Lot of clones, lot of clones. We got guys that probably shouldn't be wished the best, like Captain Argaius.
Yeah, my face went
on there.
I went right to Chicho. What the hell is that prick doing there?
You can get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, you can get the hell out of there, pal. You're like you're a prick.
Goldie, go away. But I have been getting this ready. So that is the season 1.
That is awesome, man.
For the Republic podcast in memoriam.
That needs to be a regular thing.
It will be.
We're doing that every season.
Every season. So
that is
there
awesome.
We go. Rest in peace to our fallen soldiers. You will be missed.
Gone but not forgotten.
In the case of Chairman Show, no, you will not. So thank you for joining us for our coverage of season 1 of For the Republic. So yeah, that wraps it up for this season. Don, where can everyone find you?
Right, so you can find me on Twitter at Donovan Mead, where I tweet about Star Wars, also Marvel, Doctor Who, some politics, like plenty of movie stuff in general, because I love movies and TV and stuff. You can also find me on TikTok and Hive under the same handle at Donovan McComish. You can also find me on Instagram at Donovan_McComish. And like Connor and Andrew, you can find me over. Oh, See, I almost forgot. I also write questions for Star Wars in a Galaxy's Epic Trivia Showdown. Thank you very much. For people on video, I just got handed a very nice mug of tea.
Being delivered tea.
On brand as well. On brand.
Jedi. Is that a Jedi? Is that a Fallen Order mug?
It is a Fallen Order mug. I can confirm. I will hold it up. Yeah.
Boom.
It's
there we go.
Yeah, I'm very proud of this one. Yeah, no, this is a nice mug to have. Thank you, Mum. But you can, I write questions. I write trivia questions for Star Wars in a Galaxy, along with Connor and Eli. We've got, I think, a few more of those coming up. And like Andrew and Connor, you can also find me on sweditor.ig.com, where we all write articles centered around Star Wars. My last article was a while ago. It was speculating about Obi-Wan's, like where they could take a potential Obi-Wan season 2. But also, another aspect of that site is SWEF, Star Wars Editor Fiction. And Connor, Andrew, and I are part of like the team of writers on that, where we produce short stories and web comics that try to stay within the confines of what's considered canon in the Star Wars galaxy now, but we aren't above taking elements from the Legends timeline, certain characters and concepts, and repurposing them for our own narratives. It's fun to do that. I have written one story. It came out in June last year. It's called Scars of War, and it follows a clone trooper called Blister, who survived the events of Order 66, and 5 years after Revenge of the Sith, he meets a Jedi survivor named Shar Kun, who have both got a lot of trauma to unpack if they're going to survive a certain threat that comes their way in the story. So yeah, if you like Star Wars in pain, check it out.
Perfect. As for myself, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Starlight Andrew. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at For the Repub Pod, and on Instagram and TikTok at For the Republic Pod. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, For the Republic Podcast. Get us to our goal of 100 subscribers so we can start doing some live content, some fun stuff. We have some fun stuff planned. And as we mentioned earlier in the episode, we have a new merch store, so check out tpublic.com. Our For the Republic merch store will be right there. You can check out the link right there. We have 2 designs up right now and hopefully more in the future. I just want to thank everyone for joining us for our Season 1 coverage. We're not going anywhere. We still have our Mando and our Bad Batch coverage to do weekly, and we'll be back in a couple weeks to start up Season 2. I just want to real quickly acknowledge that it's going to be a new era for us in Season 2. Don, Connor, and myself are going to be going forward into our journey with Star Wars together. Unfortunately, Jake is going to be stepping away for a little bit. We'll miss him on the show. He's always welcome to come back if he wants to. We have nothing but love for him here. But it's just going to be the 3 of us for the time being. And we'll eventually consider maybe growing the For the Republic family. But for now, we're going to have fun. We're going to continue doing this. We have 6 more seasons of the Clone Wars to get through. And we'll be back because I think the first arc of Season 2 is the Holocron arc.
Holocron heist. Oh,
yeah.
I am so, when I tell you I am jazzing to talk about that arc, the Holocron heist is one of my all-time favorite episodes of the Clone Wars.
Ooh.
So yeah, bring it on, baby.
It has been a hot minute since I've seen it, so I'm excited to see that. So
finally gonna talk about Cad freaking Bane.
So yeah, later in the week, probably Friday for Mando and Saturday for Bad Batch, you can check out our recaps, and we'll be back in a couple weeks to talk Season 2. So thank you once again for joining us on our journey through Star Wars. Hope you continue on through us with this new era of the podcast. We'll see you guys very soon. But until then, may the Force be with you always.